Hey everybody, welcome to this latest episode of Design Time. This is Carolyn, and Christian is sitting in for Chris, who could not make it today because he's not feeling well. So we have a guest star. Christian is here to talk about discussion boards and how to go about grading discussion boards. And I don't know why my camera is trying to zero in on us, but hopefully it won't be too blurry during the whole thing. So not to waste any time, we're just going to go ahead and get started. So let me share my screen, and we will go to our demonstration course here. And I just want to spend a couple of seconds talking about the purpose of discussion boards. There are actually two kinds of discussion boards. You can create a discussion board in a group, or you can create a course discussion board. And whether you're teaching online or face-to-face, discussion boards can be really useful for promoting student-to-student and student-to-instructor interaction. They provide a place to make sure that students can apply concepts and ideas, where they can discuss things, debate, take a position, defend a position, and they make sure that everybody participates. Unlike a face-to-face classroom, even the best instructors that are really good at conducting discussions, you're always going to have a couple of people that are shy and they're in the back, and you got to drag and get them to say something, or they just don't want to participate. In an online discussion, that anonymity, or not necessarily anonymity because you know who's posting, but that lack of the spotlight being on them can prompt students to be more willing to share their thoughts and ideas, and particularly when you require it. If everybody's got to post, then that gives them a built-in motivation to do that. You can also track a discussion. I mean, it's captured in the discussion board. So unlike a discussion in class, which can be really vital and stimulating, but is kind of transitory because it happens when it's done, you can capture a discussion in a discussion board, and it's there for the class to review or to have at their disposal for later on in the class. So whether you're teaching online or whether you're teaching face-to-face, you can consider using a discussion board for promoting that kind of interaction between students and for a thorough vetting of discussion on a particular concept. So what we want to show you today is how you can grade your discussion boards, the most efficient ways to do that. And we'll start by talking about how to set up the grading. So I'm actually going to let Christian, if you want to go ahead and drive, Christian's going to walk through how you can set up the grading in a discussion board.
Okay, so we are in our CETIS design demo course. Many of you have seen this before. And over here on the left-hand side, we've got all the standard menu options. We're going to go down to discussion board. And then from discussion board, you can see we've got a forum already created in here. Now, a forum is where all the discussions are going to happen. So within a forum, you have threads, and the threads are created by the students. So our forum here is Severus Snape. Is he a villain or is he a hero? And the goal with this particular discussion board is to discuss Severus Snape in the context of, is he a villain or is he a hero as the story presents him? And then we want you to back up your position. Once you posted, we want you to read your classmates' posting and respond. So we'll go into this particular forum. There we go. So we've already got a couple posts in here. One that I posted this morning, and then one that Chris posted yesterday. So we'll take a look at mine. So when you open up a thread, you as the user have the option to reply to the thread in addition to reading it. So I've got it here. If I want to reply, I can click the little reply button, and then whatever it is that I want to say, either supporting this individual's post, or perhaps defending my own post against what they're saying, I can do that.
And I would say the best discussion board prompts are those that promote those kinds of back and forth controversial topics, frankly, that students are going to have different positions on, and that they're going to get maybe a little fired up about, so that they have something to say. So, just if there's only one right answer, a discussion board's not a good tool to use for that.
Exactly. So that's the basic use of one, how it's supposed to work from a student's perspective. Now let's dig a little bit deeper, and we're actually going to take a look at how we're going to make these particular discussions gradable. So I'm going to jump back the screen. And this is where you're going to make all your changes here from the actual form itself. So I'm going to hit this little drop-down options next to the title and click Edit. Now from here, I can change several different options. One, if I have some date and time restrictions as to when students are going to be able to actually see this, I can make those here in this section. I can also choose to make it available or unavailable. Now naturally, if you make it unavailable, nobody can see it. So we always want these to be available unless you are going to personally go in and open them up on the days that you want them available. As we scroll down a little bit, these are the form settings, so this is really where all the magic happens in making it gradable. Standard view or participants must create a thread. Standard view is everybody can see it at any time. Participants must create a thread. That option says until they create a thread, they can't see other people's threads. And that kind of is a way to combat folks copying ideas off of each other.
Or following the herd.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
We want them to be individualistic and really support their idea rather than just saying, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon because I want my 10 points. No grading. There's not going to be a grade associated with the form. Grade the discussion. You can put in a points possible. Down here you can say, how often does this need to be graded? So if you want to have an initial post and then a response post, you can mark this as, every one post, every 2 posts, however you want to show a reflection of, hey, somebody's made a post that needs to be graded. Then you have your due date and time. So this speaks to, if you're doing multiple responses, this speaks to the initial post. A rubric, we always recommend using rubrics. They're a great way to keep track of the grades and makes everything very uniform for grading. So you can click this Add Rubric here. You can either create one, or you can select one or use one that's already existing in your course. Scrolling down a little bit, the alignments, typically these are not available to change based on the template, but essentially this just adds some different points of grading to the actual form and how it reports to the grade center.
Those are actually tied to outcomes analytics that we aren't not currently really making use of, so you can kind of ignore those now.
Okay, so here's something kind of cool, or at least I think it's kind of cool, the subscription section. So you can say, I don't want anybody to subscribe to these threads or these forums, and that's fine. But if you allow folks to subscribe to the forum or to the thread, essentially they can start following it. So just like if you like something on Facebook, you can follow that feed and get an idea of what other people are saying, what other people are posting and sharing. And that really becomes handy if you're trying to drive that authentic community of conversation through discussion boards. So allow members to subscribe to forum. I always say yes, let them do it. And then include a link to the post. That way they're going to receive information blasts about, hey, somebody's posted on this particular comment. I want to go and read it.
The people who post really early particularly appreciate this because then they don't have to keep going back and checking. They can find out when somebody posts and then they can go do their reply.
Yeah.
So,
It's very nice, it's very cool, and again, it establishes that online community that we're really looking for through e-learning. Okay, so this section here, most of you have a pretty standard template for using, but just to kind of break it down, allowing anonymous posts, we don't recommend it. That just means people can post anonymously. Allow the author to delete their own posts. That's a decision of yours as the faculty, whether you want that to be an option for the students.
Yeah, I think because we chose post first, those are blacked out.
And that is one thing to point out. I'm glad Carolyn said that based on selections made on the way down, more of these options will either become available or unavailable. And yeah, like she said, because we have it, they have to create a thread before they can see anything in the room. It blocks out these options. Okay, allow author to edit their own posts. So, that may be a good idea if they type it real quick and they get it up and they say, oh, shucky darns, I messed up or I had a typo or whatever, I want to go back and fix it. They can do that. Allow members to create new threads. That is a definite must.
Yeah.
If that's not an option, nobody can post in the forum. Allow attachments. They can add file attachments. So if they have a Word document or maybe a picture that supports what they're talking about, they can add that. Users reply with a quote. So this will allow people who are so if I made a post and you're going to go on and respond to my post, you can go in and click the reply button, but there's a quote button that will allow you to single out a section of that particular post that I've made that you can respond back with. And it essentially just kind of gives more focus onto what everybody's talking about. So you don't have to read 1,000 trails to get to the point. Forced moderation. Now this is something new that we're recommending faculty use, especially in a very sensitive topic. Forced moderation means that before the post can actually be released for the public to see, and by public I mean the rest of the students in the class, it has to go through a moderator, and you as the instructor or facilitator of the course would be the moderator of point. So let's say we're talking about, let's say, death in an MLS course. That's sometimes a very sensitive topic. So if I make a post, it's going to go to the facilitator of that class to say, is this something you want to be able to release so that everybody else can see and comment on? So it can be very helpful. You don't always have to use it. Matter of fact, if you use it, you're going to get inundated with notifications. But yeah, if you got a very touchy subject, I'd say good to use.
Yeah. It also allows you to control, if you want to wait until like a later date to release the discussion board for everybody to begin replying. Yeah. That's another possible use for that. But it is labor intensive on the instructor's part.
Yeah, because everything goes through your hands
right,
at that point.
Right. So.
Okay. So the last two options, we don't typically use these very frequently. Allow post tagging. So if you're a fan of Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, you know you can add hashtags so that if you tag it in certain respects, other people that are following those tags can see them. So I can make a tag on a post, and then if somebody searches that tag, my post will come up. Not many folks have used it to this point. It's kind of cool, but at our point in time where the way we're using discussion boards, there's not necessarily a real need for it. And then the same below that, allow members to rate the posts. I shy away from that simply because rating the posts is kind of a distraction, in my opinion. But it allows students to go in and say, hey, this is a 5-star post, I really like it, to drive more attention to it.
I would say if you're grading these, I wouldn't use the rating because that could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can very easily become confusing to
right.
other students, thinking, oh,
right.
well, this was a 5-star rated post, and I got a 9 points out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
So something to that effect.
So it really depends on your purposes for the discussion board whether you want to use this or not, but they are available. Yeah. Yeah. Blackboard's trying to be more social media.
Which is kind of a cool idea.
It is. Yeah.
But in our uses, man, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how you set everything up. Once you have all your selections made, you're happy with them, you're going to click the Submit button. I'm going to cancel it because we didn't make any changes. There you go. Now, again, like we said before, folks can click on the topic title. They can go in and make whatever posts they need to. Now, Chris made a post, and I want to show you guys how I can respond to him. There you go. All right. So he made his post here. He says, Snape had to be a hero because he looked out for Harry. Well, you know what? I kind of disagree with that to a certain extent, so I made my post up against his. And I did that by clicking this little reply button. And when doing so, it's going to give me the option just to make a quick post here, and I can submit it, and then it'll show up below his within the thread field. Right. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back over to Carolyn. This is basically how it works. So now we need to learn how to do, how to grade the discussion board, you as the faculty member.
So when the discussion is completed or when the due date is passed and you're ready to grade, there's a couple of different ways you can get into the discussion board to do the grading. My personal preference is if I go into Grade Center down here in the control panel, there's a Needs Grading button. I really like this. This isn't just me, but I really like this because I like to grade things in the order that they come in. And so using the needs grading, you can see the date that any assignment, whether it be a discussion board post or a written assignment or a test or that you need to grade or whatever, will be listed here, and then you can order them by latest to earliest or vice versa. I'm always been one that, if you submitted it first, you should get graded first, so I always start with this. So as you can see here, we've got our two discussion board posts, so I could click on the user attempt, or I could go by just that that user's activity, or I could grade all the users, so I can access the discussion board to begin grading this way. But you can also just go to the discussion board and click on the forum, and then you'll notice up here, since I'm an instructor, I have this grade discussion forum button. Students would not obviously have this. And there is, of course, a third way. You could go into the Grade Center and just click through and grade from there. But this actually is a little easier. Grading discussions are easier if you stay out of the Grade Center, to be honest. So
it can get really hairy.
Right, right. So if I'm going to click this grade discussion forum, and here's all the activity, well, actually all the users that have access to this forum, and over here is the list of posts. So we see that, okay, Chris has got a posting. I wonder why yours is not showing up. That's kind of strange.
I'm marked as an instructor rather than a student.
Oh, that's why. Okay. So I'm going to grade Chris's. And so it takes me to this screen, and I was hoping that I could grade yours, but you didn't post as a student. So what would happen if Chris had actually posted and then replied to someone, I would see both of those postings here. So what's nice about this is this. I can grade his initial posting, and I can see his reply. So I can grade both halves of his participation on this discussion board. If you're grading for both the initial post and the response to a fellow student, you can see the whole package right here on this screen. So that's why that's very useful. So like any assignment that you would grade, this is laid out pretty much the same. So you have, you know, the work the student did over here. And by the way, you can also reply from here as well as going into the discussion board and just participating as the students do. You can also reply here. Over here in the grading panel, if you pull this down, you can show all the users, so you can navigate around and grade other people. I have a rubric attached to this, so I can expand that and use that to do my grading. If you're not familiar with rubrics, we've got a whole nother DesignTime episode on that, so you can go check that out. But I always like to expand the feedback and show the description, so I'm sure that I'm applying the criteria as I intended to when I use the rubric, and I give feedback based on each criterion. And then you can give a grade. Chris didn't write very much, so I'm just going to give him a 7. Plus, he's not here, so.
What happens when you're out?
Yeah, when you're out, you give a 7. So I won't go through filling out the whole rubric, but then you can give some overall feedback, and then I'll go ahead and just say okay.
And speaking as a not so long ago student, you know, some students really appreciate the feedback. I'm one of them. You know, whenever I make a post, I want to know what you thought about it. So I really encourage you to use the feedback option, especially with discussion boards, because with these discussion boards, you're trying to drive conversation. Like in a classroom, you can say, oh, that's a great thought. Let's talk more about that. So by offering up some kind of feedback, even if it's just anecdotal, it's something to kind of get their mind in the right set.
Yeah. It's also, as I said earlier at the very beginning, this is a way to foster interaction with your students. You know, again, the student that might not say anything to you in class might be willing to have a little dialogue with you in the discussion board. So you can actually communicate with virtually all of your students in the course of the semester by using the discussion board. So we can see here now, Chris has a grade. I guess I changed my mind and decided to give him a 10. And if I go to the Grade Center, we can see, it's probably down here at the end, yeah, here. We can see Chris's grade down here for his participation. So that's really all there is to it. That's the whole gist of how to grade discussion boards. And it doesn't look like we have anybody with us today, so we won't be answering any open questions because we don't have any. But the good news is our next DesignTime is our not quite the anniversary special. So we've actually been doing DesignTime for over a year now, but our next episode in August, and that'll be August 3rd at 10:30, will be with all of us here in CETIS Design. So myself, Christian, Chris, and Dawn will all be joining you, and we're going to be soliciting questions ahead of time. So you can join us, and we'll still offer time for open questions, but if you want to just submit a question and then watch it later, you can do that. So be watching for that. We'll put a blurb in our newsletter and possibly send out an email and request questions ahead of time. And we'll answer any questions on any topic, but we prefer them to be something we know about, like Blackboard. So you'll get an answer, but it may not be a good one on some other topic. So I hope you'll join us then, and I hope that this is helpful to you. And as always, thanks for watching.
See you later.